I'm Matt Reynolds, and this is my podcast.
I can do the job, but running the business is quite difficult. What a lot of tradesmen lack, and I was probably one of them, is business skills.
I don't mind making mistakes. You learn from your mistakes.
Information is all around you in the minds of people that work beside you.
Welcome back to the Trench Talk podcast. I'm Matt Reynolds. I'm a plumber, and this week I sat down with Stuart Lord to discuss building his company, Lockelec. The idea of these discussions, for those of you joining us for the first time, is to go into the trenches of achievement and talk, not with people who are orchestrating from some lofty perspective, but to those high performers who are actually in the trenches, honing their craft. That's included guests from the worlds of business, sport and entertainment, all of whom are on the front lines doing amazing things. When Stuart first walked into the family engineering and design business, he knew things were bad. But not one to shy away from a challenge. He rolled up his sleeves, pounded the pavement, drummed up business and took on jobs he didn't know how to do. He did basically anything that would bring money in for the company. But imagine this, you find the work, you do the job and get payment, only to have the money disappear from your bank account due to unpaid bills, overdue tax and other hidden liabilities. Stuart's predicament lasted for over 4 years. Today, he has a growing business, has been nominated for several design awards and services some of Australia's biggest and most well-known companies, including Coles, Metro, Victoria's public transport network, Siemens, the Government of South Australia and Ambulance Victoria. We discussed dealing with constant setbacks, the moment it all turned around, the importance of forming good relationships, landing big clients and being interviewed on the TV program 60 Minutes. If you'd like to know more about Stuart, you can find him at lockelec.com.au. To get every episode of Trench Talk on release, please remember to hit the subscribe button inside your chosen podcast player. And if you're feeling super nice, 5-star us on iTunes, leave a review there and subscribe to our growing mailing list on my website, xrm.com.au. Enjoy my chat with Stuart Lord. A quick update before we jump to this episode. These interviews, as you probably know, are pre-recorded. I sat down with Stuart a few weeks ago. Since then, Lockelec has moved from nominee to winner of the Supplier of the Year award issued by Coles. Coles, for our international listeners, is one of Australia's biggest supermarket chains. Coles General Manager of Commercial Store Operations said, and I'm reading this directly from the press release issued by Coles, Lockelec is a small business which uniquely demonstrates its commitment to improving the operations at Coles. Our team members collect over 5 million trolleys per week, and the Red Rover will help to significantly reduce the manual handling involved in completing the task. So when Stuart talks about being a finalist in some of the design award competitions, you know he's actually already won one of the awards he was shooting for. The Red Rover is the trolley mover Stuart and his team designed, which he couldn't actually name when we got together for the podcast. I'm sure you'll connect all the dots as you move through this chat. Once again, enjoy Stuart Lord. Stuart Lord, thanks for doing this.
Pleasure. It's great to be here, Matt.
Now, mate, your company, Lockelec. Tell me, what do you do?
Well, it's an interesting, very diverse company of what we do. So we have a range of products to extend people's working lives, I guess you can say, with battery power. Then we also design and manufacture a lot of things in the rolling stock industry. So trains, trams, buses. So one project we're working on at the moment is a new automatic ramp system that slides out of a door pocket and folds itself down to the ground nice and easily, and that's coming to Melbourne in the new generation trains next year. So we've just delivered our first unit to a mock-up train, so the prototype train, and it's going really well. So it's a busy, exciting time. And then we also have a product that we've just developed for moving shopping trolleys. So you might have seen in the world of pushing shopping trolleys, when you see guys who are just pushing, breaking their backs, it's a pretty public issue in a workplace. We see it pretty much daily when we go to the supermarket. So we've developed a product that is, again, battery powered and remote controlled by a Bluetooth handset that pushes the shopping trolleys from behind, and you can steer them nice and easily and collect up to 20 at a time. And one of the major supermarket chains here in Australia is going to be rolling them out nationally. So it's a pretty huge thing for us, and it's also been nominated extremely recently, so it's just coming to the market. We've just started delivering them the last couple of weeks. So it's been nominated for some pretty serious awards that we know we're a finalist for already. Yeah, pretty exciting times to say the very least. So very diverse. Yeah, we even have battery-powered bed movers, so products that grab onto a hospital bed and you steer them with a handset. So, yeah, it's quite a diverse array, but we've got a great small team of engineers, of course, and also we come up with some great ideas, but we specialise with partnering with a client who has a risk in their workplace and they tell us what it is and we try and eliminate it, I guess.
So I wanted to ask how these contracts opportunities come about. Do you solve problems that people come to you with, or do you come up with problems to solve, if that makes any sense?
No, that's definitely a lot of the problems come to us. So they'll go, hey, we've got a problem, whatever it might be, and we'll pitch a few ideas. So some of the ideas can literally come to your mind when you're sitting in the meeting with them and they're saying, hey, we have an issue, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as they're talking, they think you're almost zoning out and you're not listening to them, but you're actually coming up with the idea on that moment. And all of a sudden, you start just coming up with the ideas and all you want to do is try and invent something for them. And often it works out extremely well because we're all very passionate. We want to see results and we care about what we do. And often it's a very successful outcome.
How did you, is that something you tendered for?
What they did was they ended up approaching a whole lot of companies who did some presentations, okay? So there was probably 20 companies went into head office there and presented. We were one of them. We were selected, and two other companies, two from America, were also selected with a product that does push shopping trolleys. And I believe they ended up dropping us just because we didn't have off-the-shelf items. They're like, oh, what we'll do is we'll just go for something else off the shelf, okay, and see how that goes. And I was, we were very much telling them, hey, we will come up with exactly the right product for your environment. This is not just something you have to make suit. We will do it. They ended up dropping us. They were like, sorry, actually, yes, we did give you a letter saying we've accepted your thing, but blah, blah, blah. But I kept in contact with them. So literally over about 6 to 7 months period when they were trying to test these other units, I kept on calling them going, you know what, hey, just wondering how it's going. Just want to let you know, we believe we have something that is it's going to work really well. And then he's like, well, we're not 100% happy with what we're doing. And that's all I needed to know. I should call again. So It was and then all of a sudden I called and he goes, Stuart, can you be here in half an hour? And I'm like, huh? Can you be here in half an hour? I'm like, great, I'll be there in half an hour. Went in there and he said, all right, we're not 100% happy with what we're doing here. Maybe we should talk further. So I just started to explain to him, what we can offer. We've got great turnarounds. And he said, mate, you've got 3 weeks. Okay, literally we're presenting it to the store manager conference in about 3 weeks.
At this point, you had nothing done?
Nothing done, only had an idea in our heads. And from that point, what we did was we worked probably about 10 days straight in CAD. So I had two guys and myself on computer screens coming up with, we dropped everything, literally. So we had work what we needed to do, but this was priority number one because in our, we all believed in this more than anything because what we were going to offer, we knew it would work because we have this sort of technology in our bed mover ranges and things like that. And so we worked for about 10 days straight, did all the drawings, the design work, everything you can imagine. And we came up with it on the screen and we're like, oh my gosh, this is looking fantastic. And then we managed to partner with we had a supplier who actually does metal fabrication and we got them to cut and weld it and bend it in literally 6-7 days, and that's astronomical. So that was an incredible commitment from them. We're bolting it late at night, put it all together. Obviously, not everything fitted, so there's some oversized holes everywhere, and we were able to take that unit. It wasn't functionable, but the lights were flashing, so it was a static, great example, and it was able to go on stage, and they were able to present it as an initiative that they were looking to move forward with. And when they saw that, and they saw our commitment and what we could do in such a short time frame, that's when they were like, okay, you guys are serious. Let's give this a crack, and that's when we did. So 6 months later, we've had a prototype out there running around, and it's been tremendously successful. And now again, they're rolling it out nationally. So it's a big thing.
So you've taken it right from the idea that was in your mind through to national rollout.
Correct. So
which includes, because I came into your factory and offices a week or two ago, and we went through and we had a look around. And you go right through and do not only user manuals, but you do training modules, you do the whole lot for staff and that as well.
Correct.
So you go right into the company and show them how to use it.
Correct. So like everything, we want to, a lot of things such as this, it's the last 5%. So especially with, you want you want the actual users to be excited about it and also know how to use it and don't have any problems. So what we did was we've actually, where most people would have probably just given them the product and gone, here you go, and here's a basic instruction manual, it was paramount that we know how important it is to actually get it right from the moment they go out to the marketplace, because that last 5% is everything. And that's why we actually put quite a lot of resources into producing videos, instruction videos, quick guides, detailed manuals and all that sort of stuff, where most people wouldn't have done that, but I knew how important it was to get every single person who was getting their unit to know how to use it straight away, no questions asked, and they go, you know what, I'm confident, I'm proud of this, let's make it happen, and it's been well received.
So it's one thing to get it past board level or whatever level it gets past at, but then it's another thing to actually get engagement at the ground level, which you really need to then get further and more in additional orders and all that, I would assume.
The user is the most important person. So if you have senior management really, really happy implementing it, that's great to a point because they're doing what they have to do. But the people on the ground, they're the people you want them to be most happy, because if they're happy, everyone's happy. So, and that definitely goes from all of these sort of products that we design, is we have to listen to the actual guys on the ground using the units, because you don't want to produce a product from upper management and then the guys actually hate it more than anything, because that doesn't work. That's not a key to success. So the key to success is people using a unit. They need to be involved as much as, or if not more than, the actual guys making the decisions.
Your access ramps for the trains?
Yeah, so this is another exciting little project, as I touched on in the introduction there. So it's a ramp system that comes out of a side of a train. It's never been done before. We're pleasantly working with a Melbourne high-capacity train manufacturer, who's been awarded the new trains here in Melbourne next year. So we've just started putting the prototype units on this week. So obviously they went really well, not so good, but in the end we've got it perfect. So we're very happy, 99%. So that's pretty good for a prototype, as anybody would know. So this engineering feat's it's going to work. So we're excited. And obviously there's more fleets out there in the industry to work with, and globally as well. So once we have this guy running around, this ramp, we definitely, there's more avenues to reach out to.
And what was the first contact for that idea? How did you first find out about it?
So
do you remember that?
Sort of, yeah. I've been in the rail industry for a few years, so that's where we got our lucky first break. So when the company was not so much of a company, but yeah, it's a very incestual sort of industry, so you've got to be friends with everyone, of course, because there's always someone moving around. And there was 3 bidders actually going for this contract in Melbourne. So there was Alstom Transport, Downer Rail, and Bombardier Transportation. So I pleasantly knew all 3 people, and I was I managed, because it was a good idea we came up with, to pitch the same product. So they were all going in with the same wheelchair mechanism. So it's a disability access ramp. So it's obviously the ramp where the wheelchair goes on and off the train.
Yep. Which currently the trains don't have. Is that
they
right?
have a very heavy portable ramp that they carry over. They flop down on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Anyway, so it ended up it's working out really well. So had a few people there. We pitched it to all of them, and then it's got the tick of approval to put onto their concept, and that's what we've done this week. And it's working, so it's going to be on the fleet, that's for sure.
How do you decide what projects to take on? Is there any criteria you have as a business? Or
yeah, we probably should select things a bit more. We should probably think of selecting things in a bit more calculated manner. Yeah. Often of the time, unfortunately, because we can make some difficult things happen, we do get the basket cases a lot of the time, where the big manufacturers like, oh, this is really difficult, let's give it to these guys. So we're always pulling our hair out. It's difficult, but we somehow get things done.
Do you ever have a lack of ideas? Do you ever struggle to come up with a solution? Is that harder than making your ideas work, maybe?
Okay, so way you come up with solutions, okay, the way I think the best way to sort of talk about how to come up with solutions. So one of my big benefits, okay, is the way, if somebody comes with a problem, the way often of the time I'll come up with a conceptual idea, okay? So literally I'll be on a whiteboard going, this is how we should do it. Then I'll have, the smart people who will go, okay, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Then we'll start steering to a solution, whatever it might be, let's say the ramp or the trolley mover. But The most impressive way we work with things is, and the way I understand, is we have a freedom to fail process. So with myself, when I work with my team, I love being proven wrong. So I never go into a meeting, this is how we're doing it, we're doing this. The best thing somebody can do is have their voice, their opinion, because not most of the time, but a lot of the time, the direction we come from, where I start with, might not be the right direction, okay? But always you want to be open to other ideas, and when you are open to believing with the people around you and having the ideas around you, then it definitely works out. You get to a better solution, and not believing you don't want to be the person thinking this is how it's done from start to finish, that's for sure, because then you're not going to get results. Being able to motivate the team around you is most important, and making them feel like they can come up with ideas without getting into trouble if it's not a good idea. So, yeah, that's one of our philosophies, is freedom to fail, I guess you can say, with whatever it might be. And obviously things don't go so well, and that's when you need to work quickly and get it right.
Now, you grew up in Melbourne?
Yep, grew up in Melbourne.
What do you remember most about your teenage years?
Years, yeah.
Good. Pre-business.
Pre-business, gosh.
Can you remember anything?
Yeah. What kind of kid was I guess. I was into golf, all that sort of stuff. I definitely, I was very good at being friends with everybody. So I guess that's one thing I can sort of remember, was I was good at getting along with people around me, older and younger. I was friends with guys who were, 3 years above at school, and also very diverse in our year level as well. So that was how I was very open to people. I never judged people, and I think that was having that sort of open-handed sort of approach to life has been a bit of a godsend with myself, and I've had a lot of people who can see that side of myself, that everybody has a chance with me, okay? I will invest so much into you emotionally and work-wise if we believe in each other, and naturally with that approach, that's when people really do start to believe in each other. And that's how you get a lot of good results, I believe.
Which probably, it fits well in your designing and being open and encouraging, encourages others to have their input. Did you always have an ambition to be a business owner from early on?
No, not really. I never knew what I really wanted to do, to be honest. So, yeah, I never really knew what I wanted to do, and I was like, I enjoyed breaking things and putting them, and I seem to be very good at that. Not so good at putting them back together, but I was like, is that how it works? Okay, I'll move on. So my attention span wasn't the best it could have been, but yeah, so I sort of was like, what do I want to do, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think many kids do know what they want to do at a young age, but I definitely think this company it was meant to be, that's for sure.
Tell me about the first day that you stepped in.
Yeah, absolutely. So the company was, I had my grandmother was there. It was literally a very, very small company. It was turning over a couple $100,000, like minute. My grandfather, my father, and a very heavy drinker out the back who was seldomly there. So I remember coming from overseas because the company was very sick, and I said, you know what, I'll give it a crack and see what I can do. So I remember walking into the place and going, okay, cool, here's my desk, this is what we have. The company was just producing little motor drives for trolleys pretty much. So it was like, a battery powered to move a trolley. That's pretty much what it was. And the company could not have been any more in a worse state. It shouldn't have been operating, to say the very least. And if I knew the true extent of the company, I would never have walked in the doors. But that exact day, I remember clearly locking the doors and literally, I'll never forget it, pulling the door closed and turning the key, and had this incredible, that almost a hot flush sort of happy feeling, going, this is what I'm doing right at this present moment is exactly what I need to be doing, and I'm very proud to do so. And from that moment, never ever looked back. And the drive to get things done and build the company it's a decade on now. So it's 10 years. So since that day I closed those doors for the first time and locked it up. And it's been a hell of a ride. It's been the most difficult thing I could ever have imagined. It's been more difficult, but exciting, traumatic, horrific. Again, exciting. Every single moment it changes, but definitely found this is what I was here to do, that's for sure. So to give my, I guess, family a better life.
Do you remember what you went to work on first? Like you said, the company was sick. Did you say that?
Oh, yeah. More than that. What happened was we were sort of pottering along.
You were just doing those trolley drivers at the time?
Yeah, trolley drives, things like that. So I remember we did have a hospital bed mover in its basic form as well. I ended up a lot of cold calling, all that sort of stuff, really trying to get out there and push the envelope and blah, blah, blah. And I managed to get into one hospital locally, quite a big one. And the guy, obviously, I was very young. I was only 23 or something. And he really believed in how genuine I was and I want to try and help your solutions in your workplace. And he ended up giving us we were living week to week, that's for sure. So he ended up giving us an order for about $100,000, and they paid, I think, 30% up front just before Christmas, and it was one of the first Christmas times that we've actually had, we could enjoy Christmas. Unfortunately, the 30% was probably the margin. So 4 months later, when we tried to start deliver it was obviously hard. We didn't really have the funds because we had to pay a lot of debt off and all that sort of stuff. So I remember that moment, that's for sure. But it wasn't as simple as starting a fresh company, because every single time we got a run on the board, there was always some skeleton that came in through the closet that I didn't know about. So to the point where, I'd be we didn't have a car that could get to Sydney because they were in such bad condition, all the vehicles. So I used to do camper van relocations so I would have a power drive where I had to go to Sydney to install them. So it was like a little medication cart. I remember getting into organising a camper van relocation because there was no way in hell any of our cars could make it, and drove all the way to Sydney, fitted it, screwed it on, blah, 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 got it fitted, then got the check from the nursing home and quick clearanced. And I remember putting it into the bank and it cleared, and then I was like, okay, that's great, that's good. But then I don't know what happened. Obviously, the thing was overdrawn, so I was stuck in Sydney, but I managed to somehow get another couple $100 to get back. And that's how it was for many, many years. So it was very difficult times, to say the very least, but never felt like it was too much. I knew it was difficult what I was doing, but there was always looking for the next challenge. That's for sure.
So you use the camper van relocation to go to a place where you need to do an install.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember
it's a pretty smart idea.
That's
quite good. I'm
it's
impressed with that.
It's like $2 a day. It was amazing. So you only had to pay for the petrol and return it to. It was pretty clever. So you had to do it in 2 days. So you couldn't really go touring around or anything. You couldn't go to Marimbula and play golf or anything like that. So that was the sort of way. If I had to drive interstate, I would always find a camper van and do that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever been stuck in Sydney with no money and not been able to get back, and then having to figure out a different way? And did you ever want to quit?
No, never entered my mind. Never.
Why not? Because it would seem like it would be something that would come up for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's sort of, I don't know if I'm a simple guy or what, but that never sort of entered my mind. Obviously, I was like, this is unbearably difficult and hard and emotional and all that sort of stuff. But every day I was there, I felt like I was definitely doing the right thing. There was no financial rewards for the first 5 or 4 years. I didn't really take a salary, so I was earning about 16 to 25 grand a year sort of thing, so very minimal. And then there was other people in the company that were actually pulling substantial amounts out, but I was a young guy who didn't need a lot of money, so that was understandable. Well, not really understandable, but I sort of...
You dealt with it.
You dealt with it how I did, but that's a bit more of a complicated story. So there's obviously been a lot of things, but with businesses, it's incredible the peaks and troughs. But definitely, I never thought about quitting.
That's interesting. What was the moment where you knew you'd turn the corner?
Oh,
because you're 4 or 5 years in. That was tough, that period. Was there a point where you had a new product, a decision that really turned around?
Yeah, definitely. I remember, so this was actually with the trains, the Connex trains. So went in there and we had an opportunity to put a bracket, I guess you can say, into the roof of a train. So never really worked with the trains before, managed to get an introduction there, started to become friends with the guys there, and that was probably the most key thing. So ended up installing a bracket, and they're like, oh, great. How can you make another one? We want a few changes, want this change, this change. So anyway, it was to do with a black box on the train. So if there's an accident, it records things. and ended up, they're like, you know what? We want you to make another one. We'll give you 10 grand. And I'm like, oh, okay, you'll give us, okay, great. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I can't believe you can just do that. And so, you know, gave the invoice, can you please pay it? Well, calling accounts departments, all that sort of stuff straight away. And managed to make another prototype. They're like, okay, great. Let's put it on a train. Let's put 4 on a train. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up installing it. I ended up manufacturing these. So ended up rallying a designer to obviously working part-time. He was working on it and managed to get a fabrication firm to just do the laser cutting. And I welded it all, the units. I've never welded in my life, so I don't know what I was doing. Welded 4 units. I worked 27 days straight, majority on my own, 27 days, got 4 of them done. Then I had to install them on a train. Didn't know what I was doing. I had to put them on a train. I had a train waiting there, put them on, and the crazy things worked, okay? So obviously they weren't perfect. I had to do a lot of fixing on them without people knowing. That's for sure. So I did that, installed them on the train, didn't even know what I was doing, but somehow got it sorted. And they're like, okay, Stuart, you know, now we want you to get them one vibration tested. And if that's successful, then we'll put them throughout the whole fleet of trains. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I ended up getting them vibration tested, took this unit to the test facility, and they looked at them and went, oh my gosh, we've never seen such crazy welding in our life. It was literally just slugs all over it. And I'll just put another layer on, and they're like, there's no way in hell this is going to pass. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it literally shakes it for 2 days, and you can see if it's going to last the lifespan of the intended use or whatever it is.
Yes.
So they're like, wow, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I don't know how, but the thing passed.
Right.
Yeah. And then they go, Stuart, we wanted you to quote on 400 of these. And I'm like, yeah, gave a quote. And then they're like, cool, here's an order. And we were operating at it again at that time. Our facility is almost as big as this room. That's extremely small. And they even said, this is very risky for us doing it, but we believe in you, so let's do it. I had no idea of how we were going to do it at all. No idea. And ended up getting the contract. Then they needed a security deposit for 5% of the contract. Obviously, I had no way of getting that. So I was like, yeah. So I just ended up getting away with that for about 6 months without paying that. Got the order, and then found a metal company that could do the welding for us and the powder coating. And then we had to do the assembly. Then we started to roll it out, and then we started getting the invoices out there, and we started getting paid. And that's the turning point, I guess you can say. It was that huge, wow, this is what we're doing. But then we definitely got a knock on the door from the tax department. It was pretty exciting. Apparently, I don't know what was going on, but I don't think before my time there wasn't any tax paid for a good 9 years or something. So that was it was a short-lived turning point, that's for sure. Right. But pleasantly we got through that, and definitely all the cream in that job went into that. So then I was sort of back to square one with not really any operating capital. And this industry that I work in, you need money to buy the parts because you got to, everyone's on 30 days. So it was difficult. But then, as I said, I became friends with a lot of the younger graduates in the programs in the rail industry. So they ended up saying, hey, can you make this thing for me? Can you do this thing for me? Whatever it might be. And then before you knew it, it started becoming a serious company, to a point now these graduates now are some of the big guys in the industry 10 years later, and they're like, call Stuart, call Stuart, call Stuart. And they've all changed jobs. And I was always petrified of them leaving, but that's been the best thing. I'm so happy when these guys end up getting changing jobs. So they end up spreading the good word somewhere else, and hopefully it's the good word. Obviously, what you do is not always perfect, but we're trying our best. And one of the most important things by keeping this relationship is never hiding from the fact that something's going wrong. I think that's a good business ideology. Is I was always very, very quick to let people know I'm stuffing up or whatever, I'm missing a delivery, and I would always try and tell them in advance instead of them calling me going, hey, where are my goods? Oh, sorry, yeah, they're going to be another couple of weeks ago. We've got a problem, because that's when that's when people get very short and angry. Yeah, that's unacceptable, let's be honest, especially.
It's amazing how many times honesty can diffuse a situation, isn't it?
It's crazy, because I've caused some serious problems out there, okay? And like serious problems. I've had trains out of action. Would hate to know how much money it was costing the operator per day. But if you tell them up front and you're like, literally, hey, this is happening, this is how I'm trying to fix it. What else can they do? They go, oh, okay, thank you for letting me know. Actually, most people would not let you know, and by doing that, is that crisis is it's something you never want to that's never let a crisis go to waste. I guess you can say is whenever you have adversity in front of you, a crisis, whatever it might be, that's often how you become a better customer, and people understand, they want to work with you more because you prove yourself at that period of time, how you can, regroup and get things together and that you care.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of my sayings is, never let a crisis go to waste. That's where a lot of people, work with us for many, many years after when we have some problems.
So you seem to be pretty good at coming up with solutions when there's nowhere else to go, right?
Yeah.
If you had to go back and start again, is there anything you'd do differently to the way you've gone about it?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not a very organised person, and pretty much everyone would know that around me. So I do think systems is a fast-tracked approach to creating I think the company would have been a lot further forward if I had put more emphasis on to creating better systems and processes into the company.
Right.
I've got a good ability on understanding what to do, but not necessarily doing it, okay? So do what I say, not what I do is obviously, so the basics of it, I would say, is probably putting some processes in, so, and having a little bit more organisation in there instead of just relying on email history to find something all the time and all that sort of stuff. So I think that would have been better, because what happened was with the company is we constantly hit our max ceiling point. So what happens is you have a team, you have 4 people or 5 people, you're working extremely hard, you're delivering this amount of stuff, it's going out the door, but then everybody's maxed out. Everyone's just stuffed. Goods are sort of always last minute. This is missing, no bolts for this, blah, blah, blah. And that's when you reach your maximum, I guess, your V1 or whatever you want to call it. But that's when I was really wanting to introduce some systems into place, so with forecasting, like parts and all that sort of stuff. And when we started to do that, we had the same amount of people on board, and all of a sudden we were able to go from 7/10 to 10/10 of, it was like boom, and all of a sudden people were happier. And I think the systems in place is the earlier you get them involved, and there's some really great things out there, even if it's just an app on your phone, whatever it might be, I would definitely try and use that technology as much as possible, even if it is really difficult to put the data in. Try and do it. Trust me, I can do it now, and I'm probably the worst person on the planet for this. I think that's a real key to sort of knowing where you're at.
Because you were showing me when I was in there the other week that the way you use the programming, and that you can actually pull out of that every component that you need, so you can order the exact amounts and that
Correct.
sort of thing. And then you look forward, if I'm remembering our conversation, then you look forward and try to systemize even the parts. So if you're using 3 different type of bolts or screws, maybe you can use all the same size to further reduce margin for error.
Correct. Margin for error is massive, especially with us, me especially. When I start assembling some of our products, it's probably the one units you don't want to give to the customer. But yeah, margin for error. So yeah, we try and we have our own like a Kanban system now. So we have a lot of parts on the shop floor. So whenever something starts going down to a low level, or we end up getting a big order, the system automatically activates and spits out purchase orders to wherever it is to ensure we can deliver it and fulfill it. And we can even have a systems now where the customer can, ours is a bit more complicated than like buying something on eBay, but they can literally get almost a system like that. They can log in and see the processes of where their units are getting in production. If the materials have been ordered, assembly's happening, it's getting powder coated or whatever it might be, they can actually see that on a timeline, a running timeline, and they can go, the goods are estimated to be delivered on that time to your purchase order, or they're not. But yeah, one of our struggles is we deal with a lot of sub-suppliers, because we're more of we're a design and an assembly plant.
Your welders, your
all
cutters.
That's off-store. Yeah, that's all off-site, and we use fabrication companies for that, and that's where you've got to manage them, and it's very difficult. So sometimes you let your customer down. It's not your fault, but your customer doesn't care about that.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, relationships are very important, and also managing them is everything.
Who's been the biggest influence on your career? Speaking of relationships,
Wow, Ari Gold? No. Greatest influence would be my grandfather, I would say. Yeah, of course, absolutely. That's who it is. My grandfather is still in the company. He's 95 years of age, still working.
Yeah.
Of course, that should have come to my mind instantly. So this man is 95, still working. He's an incredible, stoic gentleman, strong, smart. Every day I'm just completely blessed to be having him in my life. And he's definitely the reason, I look at him. He's always been someone I can lean on. If something needs to be done, he'll do it, even at 95. Just an incredible human. And recently, 60 Minutes actually did a story on him. A 95-year-old still. There was Charles Woolley. I don't know if you know him, but he's one of the presenters.
Yeah.
So they did a story on him at our factory. You can see him, and he's just ethic, and a good person. And it's great to be around and feel very blessed every day.
Did he start the company?
Yeah, so he started the company. So there was different facets of the company, but it goes back into the 70s. So yeah, they did lighting back in the day, and then they were the first people in Australia to do the electric wheelchair. And then they always got hit by the lighting company. They was very successful, but then they had issues when the Taiwanese came in and copied their products, and then they were no longer competitive. And then the same thing with the wheelchairs. So obviously the wheelchairs came from China in the end and were half the price. So yeah, they've definitely the company before my times had some great times and some bad times, of course, but definitely I think everyone on board's thrown a lot of energy at it. And but definitely the period that we're in now is a very, very exciting one. And it's great to be able to walk in the door and know the reason why you're there.
I met your grandfather a couple of weeks ago, albeit only briefly. How did 60 Minutes find you and your grandfather?
Long story, but there was a friend, a school friend, and his father does some stuff in that sort of industry, and there was a story going on about you won't be retiring until you're 70. That's the story. And then obviously he'd spoken to someone at 60 Minutes, and then they're like, oh, there's actually a guy in Victoria working, and he's 95. And that's when obviously it got a fair bit of momentum, and he speaks extremely well. They went over there and met him and spent a couple of days with him, to the point where they even went to his house. And when my grandfather Bob can't sleep, you know what he does? He ends up making model aeroplanes to try and, so he literally can work through the night. He's got model aeroplanes in his house that have no chance of ever leaving his apartment or his little place, because the wingspan's so great they will never leave
That's the Henry Ford thing, isn't it? Build the car and then have to knock the garage down to get it out.
Yeah, so it's crazy though. Like, he's got this bedroom there, and there's this biplane in there. It can't leave. Possibly it's that big, but he just it's got thousands of parts he's made by hand, and he's just like, I do this during the night just to because I don't want to look at the ceiling all night, so I'll actually do something. That would be great. So it keeps him busy.
What's your view on retirement? Because that's where this whole story came back to, right?
Yeah, correct.
The notion that you can't retire as early as 60 and 65 anymore, simply because you're not going to be able to afford it in most cases.
Correct. Yeah, so retirement age is completely different. So people who say, even if you see, you can even see it on the transport systems here, like the senior concession cards used to be 55, 65, now they're, I think, they're 60, 65. I think they're 65 now. They're just by looking at that. We're now having to work a lot longer. Things are changing. The world's different. We're an ageing population. The governments won't be able to support us like they could have, because you've got so many baby boomers out there now coming to fruition, I guess you can say. So a lot of the rest of the world's in a lot of trouble with that, especially if you go to if you look at Finland, their statistics are pretty horrific by their entitlements there. They're a successful country, but there's way too many people in that older age group that aren't going to be paying taxes. And the same thing is slightly happening here. But I definitely believe I'll be working into my 80s, 90s. Not just I want to be a part of something. And when you see my grandfather, he's 95 and he looks 70, and because his brain and his mind and his aptitude has never been slowed down. So he's always, feeling like he needs to do something.
So the old saying, retirement's okay as long as it doesn't get in the way of your work.
Yeah, like retirement I think sounds like a good thing in theory. I think it's important to, once you get older, to have maybe a year off and whatever it might be, have your Tesla drive you around Australia, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's really important, but I think everybody needs a huge meaning to exist. So, I don't want to be some person waking up in the morning not knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's where, with this company, during the huge struggles, I might be definitely have some terrible days, but I know why I'm there every day, and that was probably one of the biggest great things I realised was, no matter how difficult it was, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm just hitting my head against a wall, blah blah blah. Why is this happening? But when I actually was able to realise why I'm here is to give my family a better life. And when that clicked, that's when all of a sudden, no matter what obstacle was in front of me, it was just a little hurdle that you had to go through. And he gave me the will to do so.
So you're able to reframe problems, challenges you're coming across in a way you could conquer them quicker.
Well, not really, not necessarily, but I wouldn't succumb, I guess you can say.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't actually, it wouldn't overwhelm me as much, because for many years I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. And then when I realised what I was doing, I feel like now I was put on this earth to do what I'm doing.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. You never question that now.
Never question it. Yeah, absolutely. And knowing that and being content at that is that was a real turning point for me. And that's when I knew to wake up in the morning, and like in Jerry Maguire, his guy clapped his hands and get up. But yeah, definitely that sort of that gave me that sort of spark in the morning, getting out of bed.
Changing tracks a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do on your days off, if indeed you take them, have them?
Yeah, of course. Well, I've got a little kid that's 18 months, and that's always a hell of a challenge with business owner, and that's for sure, with two people working.
I understand.
That's amazing. But what do I like to do? Well, I love cars. I love GoKarting, actually. That's definitely something that I wish I was doing more often, but that's something that definitely takes my mind off things.
So we're talking about this because we're going to go and do this in the next few weeks. We decided before we started this. But you use GoKarting to help clear your mind.
Correct. Yeah. So it's because running your own company or whatever it might be, you're always trying to juggle whatever it might be, and your mind's always racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's always all over the place, and you're thinking of this, your phone's buzzing, this is happening, blah blah blah. So when I get into the go-kart and I'm on the track in high performance kart, you're literally, every bit of energy and concentration is going to one thing. You never think of anything else other than being faster, being quicker, not dying. It sounds like a go-kart's like it is an incredible experience by pushing as hard as you can and always going over the one important thing I always believe is going so hard until you crash, because you've got to, especially with me, I'm not a professional or anything, but I if you're not spinning off the track every now and then, it means you're not trying to push yourself. But having that moment is in the kart is definitely, I never think of my phone or anything like that. It's just pure and utter concentration. Also, one thing with your phone, one thing I've done is I've deleted social media off my phone.
Right.
Okay, yeah. And so I think this it's been really good for me because I'm a bit of a scatterbox. I'm all over the place. So I deleted Facebook and Instagram off my phone. I can still access them on my laptop and stuff, but what it means is, what I found out what I was doing, I would complete an email or a task, and then I would check out on my phone and I would start scrolling through. I'd be getting a beep and I'd start scrolling through, and all of a sudden my mind had checked out of work for that period of time. And concentration is a very, very difficult thing for me. And to get concentration back is usually about 20 minutes, like for a normal person.
Yeah.
So by not having my phone going ballistic all the time with some hot chick doing an Instagram post or something, I found that's actually made me a lot more functionable at work and getting things done to an extent. I'm talking about a lot, and I never had a problem or anything like that, but it's just something I think it pretty inebriates you a little bit, because having that little thing in your pocket isn't a good thing.
There's it's a distraction device, right?
Yes.
All of those little apps are trying to get your attention, and
correct.
Those around me will tell you that I'm as guilty as anybody else, but there's actually an app. I'm just looking it up now. There's an app you can get which is called Moment, and what it does, it actually tracks how many times you check your phone.
Oh, really?
What the apps you use,
Yeah,
and how much time you spend each day on your phone.
Oh, God.
And if you're worried about this, you should download it and just check, because it's pretty scary how many times you do check it and how much time you are on the phone.
Yeah, I've checked my phone. I've got an extra battery actually permanently on it, because my battery would be flat by about 11:30, 12 every day.
Right.
Yeah, I was on it a lot.
Yeah.
But phone calls constantly. Yeah,
it's hard in one way, because you need it to navigate life these days, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you can't have it distract you from where you really want to go, which
No.
is a massive challenge. And it doesn't really sound like it when you say it like that,
Yeah.
but it can be.
Yeah, but definitely getting rid of Facebook and Instagram's been awesome development with me, that's for sure. So again, that ceiling of what I can get out of a day has gone a lot further. So like I could leave work 2 hours earlier. That's how it has, because you just keep in the zone and you're not exiting into some sort of fantasy land of looking through. And the funny thing is, whenever I looked at social media, I would look at it and literally 1 second later I'd start doing something. I had no memory of what I was doing. I had no clue. Like, it literally would be, it's not actually doing anything for me. And I think you'll actually find out in the next 10 years there's going to be some pretty bad sort of examples of how detrimental it was to our daily activities. And I'd hate to know how much it costs employers per day of lost actual time, productivity and things like that.
And even the times when you go on and then like you find yourself scrolling and you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing.
I don't know what I'm doing. My fingers and my thumb's so sore.
Yeah.
Like everyone's had the sore right thumb, that's for sure, at night.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
just a couple more questions, Stuart, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
If you could click your fingers and have it all done, where would you be in 10 years?
Ooh, 10 years. Well, in 10 years, I'd like to be having, instead of doing such project work, so do this and then it's finished, it'd be nice to have probably be having a robotics company. So it would actually be having our own core line of robotic technology. So not just one product, but a very hyper focus, because at the moment we're so diverse, we put so many resources in different areas. It'd be nice to have a more hyper-focused system of what we're doing, and I think that's where we would like to be one day, that's for sure. But at the moment, we can't afford just to be focusing on one thing. We need to be having our hand in everything.
Yeah.
So that's that.
If you could have one law changed, what would it be?
One law changed, what would it be? Oh my gosh, that's a good one. In some ways, I like just being a product of whatever the government wants me to be. So, trying to think. The laws, I think it would be nice to have cars that they could release the full autonomous thing. That'd be nice. I'm sick and tired of driving in traffic. Yeah. So,
well, that's actually there's some legislation and stuff that has to be dealt with, right?
Correct.
Coming up with autonomous cars and that, because whatever your view is, it's coming, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a matter of when is a big question. It can be debated, but for us to be thinking that we're going to be driving cars like we do now in 10, 15, 20, 100 years' time, it's not going to be the case. So there's a few things to be dealt with in terms of,
legislation and things like that. But I'm a big believer, because we do use robotic technology for building some of our products, third party, and it's pretty amazing what robots can do, and especially if you look at the Tesla world now, like those cars scan under the car in front. So if that car in front's about to have a head-on or about to have an accident and run up the bum of the next one, your car will actually start slowing down, and that can foresee something that you and I can't at all. It's pretty amazing, and it's much safer than, I'm probably the most talented driver on the planet at the moment. But I would trust a Tesla on a highway more than myself, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's crazy how good they're getting. What advice have you got for any young man or woman just beginning their career who wants to build a successful one?
Relationships is everything, okay? So absolutely the key I find is working with people around you and motivating them, thinking of them in a human element, not just hey, do this task. Actually treat them how you perceive that you will want to be treated, and keep in contact with people, even if there's no financial reward, whatever it might be. always touch base with people. That was something that was very important. I always had a long list of people. I'd always touch base, a bit like a real estate agent, okay? They always call you every year or whatever it might be. Hey, how are you? How's that dog? Or, you're still going down to, Sydney every now and then to visit your kid, Clarissa, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But in a genuine way, of course. But
yes.
By doing that is, if you don't do that, there's always someone else who's going to say, I'm here, and that person goes, okay. But if you keep in contact, they're all of a sudden like, oh, yeah, Stuart, get Stuart to do this. Yeah, that's great. Good. And that's I think, is the processes, getting rid of your social media on your phone and keeping in contact with people, even with no financial reward, okay? Because that's not, organically that will come. If it does happen, if it doesn't, it doesn't. But those people will tell people of what you might be doing and what you're offering. That's the most important thing.
Do you have any book or documentaries that you can recommend? Are you a reader at all?
Yeah, I'm good at starting books. Yeah. No. Let's try and think. No, not really. There's a few motivational books you can read through. I think they're good to try and see where people how they get through things. It's nice to touch base on them every now and then, especially if you're wanting a bit more of a pep up. So you can read a couple of those. I think that's a good thing. And documentaries.
Yeah,
I like the animal documentaries, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also mega factories and things like that.
Oh, that's some cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I don't have cable TV, but yeah. So, I watched the odd one on YouTube or something. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice. Anything further you want to add before we wrap up, mate? Or
no, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for having me.
Cheers, mate. Well, thanks for carving out some time, dropping in, doing this, and it's been a blast. Cheers, mate.
Great. Cheers.
Hey, everybody. It's Matt again. Thanks for listening. Just a couple of things before you guys clock off. You can get all Trench Talk episodes at xrm.com.au/podcast. You can also sign up for other goodies at the same site. Just plonk your email in there and you are covered. That's X for X-ray, R for Romeo, M for Mike.com.au/podcast. If you really like what I'm bringing you, please head to iTunes, subscribe to this show, and leave a review right there. And lastly, if you want to contact me directly, type the @ symbol followed by Mr. Matt Reynolds into your search bar and you'll find all the social links. Goodbye.